Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Morris. I am the Director of Business Development for Gaming for GTS Distribution, and we are back with another one of our Monday morning B2B webinars. Really do appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. Today, we are joined by the Director of Sales, Kyle Nunn, and the President and Owner, John Zinser, from AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group. And Alderac is a long-standing company with a wide catalog of a lot of awesome games. Today, we're going to talk about two very specific ones. The first one, as you can see laid out in front of John, is a game called War Chest, which is available right now. The second game is actually on John's t-shirt, which is Tiny Towns, which is a pre-order game. It's available for pre-order right now, which is going to be releasing a little bit later this month for brick and mortar stores, and then have a general release a couple of weeks after that, which I'm sure Kyle and John can talk to you about from a branding perspective and kind of some of the things that AEG is doing to help support brick and mortar retailers. Again, really do appreciate everyone from a retail perspective taking the time to join us today. As a reminder, everyone who is here live is going to be eligible for a free demo copy of War Chest. And then in addition, if you purchase or pre-order either of the games between today, April 15th, and next Monday, April 22nd, you will get 52% off MSRP pricing as well. So great opportunity to stock up and add some awesome games to your shelf and get a little bit of extra margin for all of our friendly retailers out there. With that, as I tell everyone, everything is on the table, so please feel free to ask any kind of questions you would like. If you're new to our software, this Zoom software, if you hover over your window with your mouse, there is a chat button in the lower bottom area. You can open that up, and there is an option to click either all panelists or all panelists and attendees. You're welcome to ask your question in a private or public format in that case, so whichever you would like to do. Feel free to ask any questions along the way that you have, but with that, I'm going to take my face that was made for radio. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to let Kyle and John kick things off and start talking to you about their awesome company. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and the floor is all yours.
All right. Thanks, Scott. We really appreciate it. This is an amazing opportunity. We appreciate it. What we're going to do today is we're going to let Kyle talk to you about sort of the nuts and bolts about the two games, but I wanted to take I'm going to push this up for just a little bit there. I wanted to take just a few seconds to talk to you guys about sort of AEG's sort of philosophy change in the way that we're publishing and putting out new games. About 2 years ago, we were one of the companies that had adopted the shotgun philosophy to game release. I've actually written a blog post, which I'll be posting sometime in the next month or so, that talks about why a company gets caught up in that. But you know, you guys are retailers, you understand, you know, the monster in the closet cash flow, and you can get trapped in a situation where you feel like you always have to be releasing a new game in order to be able to keep that monster where it belongs in the closet. And we did a deep dive analysis of our business, and what we realized is that prior to a game releasing, we had a pretty good idea of how well that game was going to do. We knew which games were going to be our hits, and we knew which games we were likely going to have to push harder and struggle with. And you know, truthfully, in our hearts, we knew which games were not quite up to par and that we're not going to do well. I mean, I wouldn't say that we batted 100% on that. You know, I voted down Valley of the Kings the first time we released it in a big way. I thought that you know, another deck builder was not what the industry needed, and then it exploded and did much better than any of us thought that it would do. But for the most part, we knew which games were going to be successful for us. And so we took that sort of gut feeling knowledge and we took a look at, you know, what happens if we only publish those games? What if we ruthlessly decide to not publish games that that we don't feel have a unique place in the market, or a way that they're going to stand out, or that, you know, for the most part, that we don't show up, I'm at the AEG Gaming House right now, that we don't show up at the AEG Gaming House and immediately want to get back on the table again because, you know, we love it and we can't wait to play it, which is for us, the ultimate indicator about whether a game is going to do well or not after it leaves, that after we've been working on it for 9 months, do we still want to play that game? So that's the long tail of telling you how we got to where we're at now, which is, AEG's new path is to make fewer new game releases. And for those games to each have sort of a special thing going on with it. Last year, we went real deep with this philosophy. We released Space Base, which was a hit, and we released War Chest, which was a hit, and we released Scorpius, which we made some mistakes with, but we feel like that game is a really solid game and didn't get its due because we released it in December, and we didn't do a good job of talking to the Euro gamers because we don't have games for those folks. But we think that we picked 3 really solid releases, and we for definitely sure had two good hits from that release. So we also released a few games for Big Game Night, which is something that we do every year, and we're going to release a few small games or a few games every year with Big Game Night. But the number of new actual releases you'll see from AEG will hover somewhere between 3 and 6 new games a year. The important thing that I want to tell the retailers and that I've been trying to communicate to our distributors was that that if AEG is committed to this change, we're going to need support from our partners, right? We're going to need for our partners to hear that we have made this change and to realize that when AEG puts a game out, they're not loading a shotgun and hoping that the game becomes successful. We have put that game through the ringer. We have built a marketing campaign for that product. We have cleared the decks for it so that the months leading up to the release and the months after the release, we have time for that game to become a success. Now, the one that we'll talk about all the things that we're doing for Tiny Towns, but I think that we're going to start now with War Chest, unless anybody has any general questions about the philosophy that I just talked about.
There's been no questions that have come in over the webinar chat at the moment, John, but I think that's a great opening statement and one that will probably more than likely cause a few questions. So if you guys want to jump into War Chest, like I said, as the questions come up, I can let you know.
Okay, great. I'm gonna hand the reins over to Kyle, and then I'll occasionally ping in here so that you guys can see what's going on my board here. But this is the War Chest layout. Kyle, go ahead.
So War Chest is a abstract strategy bag building game. At the beginning of the game, you're going to have a Raven player and you're going to have a Wolf player, and you're going to get 4 units each. And then you'll see these lovely chips. The unfortunate thing about the visual is you don't get to feel these chips. If you've never played War Chest before, these are extraordinarily high quality poker chips.
Yeah, we had a big, I wouldn't call it an argument, but when you're doing fewer games, we had a conversation about what quality level we want our products to be. And I'm a poker player. I love playing with my poker chips and shuffling them. And we started off with reasonably inexpensive poker chips. They were a little bit lighter. They didn't feel like these chips. We started with screen printed bags. And where we ended up was, these are stitched, really nice stitched bags. These are high quality poker chips with the middle thing in between, so that they have a super heavy feel to them. The quality of all of the components, the box, the tray that everything comes in, we went the extra mile with this product to make sure that it would be something that people want to not just to own, but sort of put in sort of a, if they become a fan of this game, it sits in a place of honor on their gaming shelf. That's me, Kyle.
Yep. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to take 2 of each of your chips plus the royal token, which has certain little aspects to it. You're going to throw them in your bag.
All right. I'm pulling out these 3 chips here. These are the chips, and then I'm going to put them in my bag. This is a bag building game, so these chips will go into my bag.
And then to begin a round, you're going to draw 3 chips. Each player will draw 3. And they're going to play back and forth using the initiative token that you're going to flip at the beginning of the game, and whoever has initiative is going to go first. So you're going to play, go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Ultimately, you have a large set of actions that you can do. You can deploy a chip, which you deploy onto one of your control markers, which is literally taking a token from your hand that is not currently represented on the board and placed onto one of the control markers.
That you control.
That you control.
Yeah, there's a limited number of components in the game, but there's a lot that you get to do with each of the components. So these chips actually can do 4 or 5 different things. You have 4 or 5 different decisions when you draw a chip into your bag. So the first of those is take that chip and deploy it to the board in one of the places that you control. Kyle?
The second action is bolstering, which is taking a matching chip of the same type and putting it on top of a pre-existing one. What that does is effectively it gives it an extra hit point.
I'm going to bolster this chip, which makes it harder to kill, and but doesn't specifically give it extra abilities unless the card itself gives it abilities. One of the things that Kyle didn't mention is that each unit has a very specific set of actions that it can take. It has an attack action, it has a move action, and then a majority of them have a special ability. Go ahead, Kyle.
So for the rest of the actions, it's you have 2 different types. You have face up and face down actions. Face up actions are actions that affect just that type of unit on the board. So what unit is that, John?
I've got the Marshal on the board right now.
Okay. So if John has a Marshal on the board, to move him, to take control of a control node, to attack, or to use an ability on that card, he has to play another Marshal chip from his hand into his discard pile.
Which is where the bag building element of this game comes into play. I need to have a few copies of each of the chips that I'm going to use because I need to be able to deploy them and then use them to do the thing that they're going to do. So I would discard this face up to my discard pile, and then I would be able to move this chip, or I would be able to use its tactic, and its tactic says choose a friendly unit that is within 2 spaces of the Marshal. The chosen unit attacks if available. So the Marshal sort of allows me to use other units in its area to get double attacks from my more powerful attacking units.
Then you have face down actions that are more generic, which include claiming initiative, which is that initiative marker that I mentioned earlier. You just take control of it and flip it to your side. Or you can recruit, which is to take a chip that is currently not in the bag or in play, that's sitting on top of your cards at the bottom, and put it into your discard pile.
So yes, you put that into your discard pile, and then after you had drawn all of the chips out of your bag and you needed to draw chips again, like a deck builder or any other bag builder, you would refill from your discard pile into your bag and then pull out the chips that you needed to continue play.
So it's played in rounds of 3 chips, so you'll draw 3 chips at a time. When you've played them all, you'll both go back to your bags and pull out 3 more chips. If you cannot pull out 3 more chips, you go to your discard pile, put it into your bag, and finish drawing. The interesting mechanic is that once a chip has been destroyed by attacking or some other maneuver, it is removed from the game. You can never get that chip back. So there's a lot of probability that gets involved. Like you have your best unit. Let's say you had an archer and you really wanted to use the archer, so you fill your bag full of archer tokens. Well, to increase the probability of drawing an archer, you could let one of your other units get killed off a bit, which would give you more probability of drawing your archer tokens. So there's a lot of hidden strategy into the bag system. Every card also has, as John mentioned, restrictions or tactics, and these are changes to the base rules that happen just for that particular unit type.
Yeah.
So I'll use the archer as another example because I can see it on the board. It cannot use the attack action. It can only use its tactic, which is to attack something 1 or 2 spaces away. So it has a restriction and a tactic on the same card. Ultimately, this game is, and I'll be the first to admit it, it's hard to explain to somebody in person and have them go, oh, I really want to play that. This game is something that really needs to hit a demo table. We
Yeah,
could.
there's a few things that you can say to spark people's interest in this game. So when we developed this game, we funny story, we said no to Onitoma when it was pitched to us years ago, and it was not the game that it ultimately became. And when that game came out, I actually brought a copy back to the company, and I said, this is how you level up a game. This is how you take a really nice game idea and you level it up into something that people are going to want to just own. And I don't know, I don't think we would have done nearly as good a job as the folks did with that amazing game. But when we looked at this game, we looked at what games we thought would be the near peers for this product, which is the Duke and Onitoma, and those are all sort of the great grandchildren of chess. And we said, how do we make a game that is that takes the beautiful strategies that show up in this game, and then put it together in a package that people are going to want to buy. So I think that if you take the demo copy that you guys are all gonna get because you've been here, and you open up that demo copy, and when people come in and they ask about different games, you let them open it up and play with the chips and touch it, and if they want to go sit down in your demo area and play the game, I think that they'll be that they will be pleasantly surprised. This game is the first game that has gotten what I would call a true 8.0 rating on Board Game Geek for AEG. It is it is our highest rated game that did not come from something that we had done before. I think Thunderstone Quest has a rating over 8 points right now, but an 8.0 rating is, that's sort of the holy grail for games. And this game's rating has been going up the more people who have been buying it, which is something you normally see on BGG. And it is our most converted demo to purchase game that we have at any game show or anywhere that anybody shows this product off. We have not had a convention where we have been able to bring enough copies of this game. We are always out on Saturday, and we keep upping the number, and we keep selling more of them. And so we have big belief in this product, and we think that you guys, if you stock it regularly and put that demo copy out and sort of identify your players that like strategic two-player combat, I think that you'll sell a lot of copies of these still moving forward.
One of the things I want to jump in and add here, John, and Kyle made this comment earlier, you don't get to see, as we're looking at it right here, the true weight and the value of those chips in your hand. And for me, when I first saw War Chest, the initial reaction I had was very similar to you, is that it has that chess derivative variant history, built into its roots. But then I picked up the chip, and I believe it was at Gen Con was when I first felt the chips. And it was literally a moment of picking up the chip, and my brain went, yep, I have to own this. Like the minute that chip touched my hand, it was, yeah, I've just, as a collector of board games and a lover of all things board games, it was something that I had to own. But then on top of that, obviously, it's a great design and a great product overall. So I do feel that this as a demo for retailers is going to pose a lot of opportunities for retailers to have that moment where someone picks up the chips and are like, whoa, like, this is beautiful. This is really, really good. And then lead right into that sales pitch of, well, let me tell you about the game as well, right? So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I haven't had that. The only time I've had the same sort of moment with a competitor's game was when I opened up Wingspan and touched that rule book, right? So a lot of you have already sold copies of Wingspan, and you know what when you opened up that rule book and you're like, holy mackerel, they've made the rule book out of a different paper, and it just had that feeling of class and high value. That's what you get out of this product. And then when you play it, you realize that you've got a game that you're going to want to play for a very, very long time, and work to master, not just play. So
Yeah, there was a question. Derek Furman had asked a question. He said, speaking of being big game night, I saw on ICB2 that retailers are able to participate this year the day before the Gen Con event. How does shop sign up for that work?
So, we've tried to figure out how to get retailers more involved in big game night a few times. One year we did a kit that retailers could buy prior to the release that was almost the exact same kit we did for big game night. This year, what we've decided to do is we've basically decided to offer a very long pre-release for retailers who are willing to get those products into their store. And so basically, like what we've announced with Tiny Towns, if you're a brick and mortar store, you can pre-purchase the 3 big game night games that we've got this year, and you will get them. Sorry, there's 4 big game nights games this year.
The Smash Up expansion is
oh
also
yeah. So
being
you'll be able to actually that is true. You'll be able to get the 3 big game night games and the Smash Up expansion, which we traditionally sell at we launched that at Gen Con. You're going to be able to buy those 4 items prior to the actual release date, and the actual release dates will be a month after that Gen Con date. So you're going to have, as a brick and mortar retailer, you're going to have a full month of runway if you purchase for big game night. And then what we're hoping retailers do is that they while they're not going to be able to sort of offer the same sort of ridiculous deal that we offer at big game night, it's part and parcel to the event that you come and you pay a fee and then you get a swag box. But we actually see that as sort of our way to give those games a chance to buzz out the way Cat Lady did. But you'll have an opportunity to have those games prior to them being sold anywhere else, which we think has to have massive value to retailers who are fighting the battle of how they're going to give value to their consumers when online products are being discounted. So that's how it's going to work this year, and then we're going to continue to work on it to see how we can improve it. But I hope
to answer the second half of that, all you have to do is sign up through your distributor. There's no thresholds or anything. We are looking at doing some type of swag pack at certain thresholds, but just keep an eye on solicits for that to come.
Yeah, the swag pack will be things that you would not have been able to get normally, special promo cards and that kind of stuff. So,
yep.
Everyone gets a free clone of John Zinser, right?
I'm not saying, but that would be a pretty good swag pack.
That would be a pretty good swag pack. Yeah. If there's too much of you, though, it might just degrade the value. I mean, we have to keep you at the highest value we can. So, so question for you.
It's like platinum. The more you have, the more value you have.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. So question for you before we shift over to Tiny Towns, with regards to the demo game that retailers are going to get for War Chest, or if there's retailers who already have a copy of War Chest that they're demoing today, what do you guys consider like good one-liners or good opening statements that if someone does have that moment where they come up and they grab the chips or they're looking at it on the table, or if it's something where they just pull the game off the library shelf, so to speak, at the retailer, what are some good quick statements that people from a retail perspective can make to the consumers to get them as interested as possible in the game instantaneously?
I think AEG has a good reputation for making good games, and I think that the best selling point for this game is that it is AEG's highest rated box game, new release box game in the history of the company. You can tell people that the components are amazing and that the gameplay is strategic and it makes you, it's the type of game that makes you want to, replay it. But, the elevator pitch is amazing components and AEG's best rated game ever.
Awesome. Excellent. Cool. So if anyone does have any questions, just as a reminder to ask them, you can hover over your window and click the chat bubble. You can then type in either to all panelists or to all panelists and attendees. If you want to ask privately or publicly, feel free to fire away. There's no additional questions that are on the webinar chat right now, but if you guys want to hop into the awesome bigness yet smallness that is Tiny Towns, we can hop into that and start talking about that.
Great. Do we want to tell people to go ahead and sort of lock? Was there an explanation on how they could lock the screen so Kyle could talk and I could?
I think that Jessica has that set up correctly. If you can correct me if I'm right, right or wrong, Jessica, about pinning John's video. I know through the whole time that we've been going through this webinar, John, you've been the video up, and Kyle, you've been the smaller video, so we've been able to see everything from our end.
Oh, fantastic.
That's correct, Scott. I was able to link all that out.
Awesome, cool. I will unbiasedly and biasedly say that this game that we're about to see right now has been some of the most fun I have had in the last 3 weeks of my life at the table. This is a deceptively strategic and awesome game in a small little area. So looking forward to hearing what Kyle and John have to talk about this.
I will unbiasedly say this is one of my favorite games that I've ever played. Which is a good thing because I have spent more hours demoing this game than any other game I have demoed in my life. So, Tiny Towns is a game about building tiny towns. And we are going to do that. Every turn, you're going to have a master builder. The master builder is going to call one of the 5 resources. There's the master builder's hammer. Thank you, Vanna. And the master builder is going to call one of the 5 resource cubes. You're going to have.
Hold on for just a second, Kyle. So let's start with an explanation of the buildings that you're gonna be building.
Right.
So you've got so here the I do apologize, Kyle. You
completely threw me off, John.
And that's exactly what CEOs do today. A perfect example of what not to do. All right, so Kyle, I'm going to let you get back on track. I'm going to go back to being Vanna.
The 5 cubes are wood, wheat, brick, glass, and stone. Brown is wood, gray is stone, yellow is wheat, brick is red, and glass is blue.
There you go.
And what you want to do is the master builder is going to call one of those. You're going to place it on your board.
Well, I'm going to be the master builder, and I'm going to say red.
Perfect.
So every person in the game, we're set up for 4 players here, but I'm not going to do 4 players the whole time. Every person in the game would select 1 red cube.
Correct.
And they would put it on their board someplace, not in the same spot if they don't want to. I got to take these off of there. There we go. Everybody has placed the red cube.
And then the next person's going to call a resource, and everybody at the table is going to pick that one. The ultimate objective is you are trying to make the color patterns that are on the buildings, which are the cards, the tarot-sized cards in the middle of the table. And once you've completed one of those patterns, you can build that building. So we're going to start with a cottage. A cottage is worth 3 points. It is the only building that is used in every game of Tiny Towns. And it is a very simple yellow, blue, red. And so once you complete that pattern in any order, you can Tetris it, you can reverse it, you can flip it, you can do whatever you need to. You're going to pick those cubes up. You are going to place a cottage building into one of the squares that you built it, that you had the resources in.
So I had these 3 on this board. I had one of these 3 locations, and I'm going to choose to build my cottage in the far corner.
There's going to be, I believe it's 7 buildings, right, John?
There are 7 buildings. Yeah, I'll go over there are 7 different buildings, and in the base game, each of the 7 buildings, except for the cottage. The cottage, there's always just the cottage in play, and the cottage says you get 3 points for if this building is fed. Okay, so when a cottage is built, it's not scoring you any points. You have to have something on the board that feeds that cottage. I've got these backwards. The place that usually feeds your cottages is this cool little farmhouse, this red farmhouse building. And there are 4 different buildings. There's a greenhouse, an orchard, a granary, and a farm. And all 4 of those buildings represent that piece, but you only use one of them during any single game. And so in this case, to build a farm, it takes 2 yellow and 2 brown, 2 wheat and 2 wood. And so if I made that on my board and then placed a farm, the farm says feeds 4 buildings anywhere in your town. So for every 4 cottages I've built, I have to have at least 1 farm in order to score points with those. And you'll notice the farm does not score any points on its own. All right, Kyle, on you go. The next building I have up here is the theater, the market, the bakery, or the tailor. That's this yellow building. These buildings give bonuses based on adjacency or the number of those. Kyle's smiling because I've taken over the pitch.
No, go ahead.
I'm so excited about this game. They give points for adjacency or the number of different buildings that you have in a row. So the theater here says for each, gain 1 victory point for each other unique building type in the same row or column as this theater. So as you can see from these the idea that we've presented here, the idea is to not just figure out how to build your tiny town, but to figure out where to build the different buildings to maximize your scoring. So the theater says 1 point for each other unique building. So for every points for being fed, the cloister here says 1 point for each cloister in the corner of your town. So you can build a cloister in the corner of your town, and then every other cloister that you built will get you points equal to the number of cloisters that you have built in the corners of your town. So we've seen people actually build a cloister in all 4 corners of their town and then build a couple of extra cloisters, and every cloister is then worth 4 points based because they get paid based on how many cloisters you have in your town. We've already talked about the farm. The sheds and the fountains and the millstones and the wells, these are built with brown and gray cubes every time. And they're sort of fillers, and they score points in different ways based on where they are positioned. So the shed says may be constructed on any empty square in your town. So if you're starting to have trouble figuring out where you're going to put stuff, or you've built yourself around an area that you just can't get anything to, you can build a shed and move it to that space in your town. The well says you get 1 victory point for each adjacent cottage. So if you're playing a cottage and well strategy, you could build a town with some farmhouses and some cottages and some wells. And as long as you created the right kind of adjacency, you can score a whole bunch of points. The cool little green building here, this is the tavern or the almshouse or the feast hall, the inn. So it's the gathering place in your little tiny town. And you get points based on the number of these that you have constructed, or on whether you have more than the players that are building other tiny towns around. And then finally, the last building is this one right here, this black building, which is we always call it the warehouse because we played with the warehouse so often, but it's a warehouse, a trading post, a bank, or a factory. And this spot usually allows you to sort of manipulate the way that you get resources into your tiny town. And so the factory says, when constructed, place 1 of the 5 resources on this. And then when another player names that resource, you can change it. So I could build an early factory and put glass on it. And if I know that Kyle is building a lot of cottages and he's calling a lot of glass, every time he calls glass or anybody calls glass, I can then choose to use a different kind of resource to build my tiny town. So,
John, there was a question that came in from one of the retailers. Do you have to build the resource that the master builder calls, which I think maybe possibly just answered that right there. But then also, when do you get to build the buildings in terms of priority on the gameplay?
Okay, so you have to use the resource that has been called. Everybody, that's sort of the magic of the game, that everybody has to build a different tiny town using the same resources that expert level people will build 2 or 3 buildings at the same time so that they don't show exactly what they're planning on doing, or it allows them to figure out how to do it. I personally, every time I get a building built, I immediately want to get it on the board because I feel the stress of not having spaces to build my stuff. So.
And the board fills up a lot faster than you initially think when you're looking at the grid. It's like, oh, well, we're going to play this game. I'm going to be able to build whatever I want. And then you place your first building and you're like, oh, wait, I need that corner. Oh, okay. Now I'll start having to do other things. And somebody calls a resource that you don't want. It's like, all right, what do I do with that? I guess I'll stuff it over here. Oh, wait, that was a terrible idea. I can't build this building now.
I think one of the funniest lines that was told to me about this when I first saw it at Gamma was, it's an aha game, meaning you're going to place a cube and then someone calls a resource and you're like, oh, okay, this is where I need to go, what I need to do. So
there's an 8th building, which we did not discuss. These are monuments. And the monuments are actually a hidden information building to start the game. Every player will get dealt 2 monuments and then they'll get to keep one. And then when you build your monument, you can then reveal that card. And monuments have different special abilities or different scoring abilities, which sort of make for a more strategic and interesting game. You can choose to play with monuments so that everybody is using the same monument. That is a way to play the game. But we play with 2 monuments face down, and then you have a secret monument. So there are some really, in my opinion, there's some really magical things about this game. It is a true 1 to 6 or 1 to as many players as you feel like you can play with game. I want to talk about the solo version a little bit because I am in love with the idea that I can play this game and work on getting better at this game on my own. So our own Scott Morris here is actually going to be a big part of helping us launch the solo play concept for Tiny Towns. We're going to have a place on our website where you can go and click on a video where you will get an opportunity to play a hosted version of Tiny Towns. Now you can play that hosted version of Tiny Towns with a group of players, or you can play the hosted version of the game solo. And basically what happens is that we've included this resource deck in the game. And when you're playing hosted, or when you're playing with 5, 6, or 8, or 12 people, instead of having a caller, you use this special deck which mixes up the resources and calls them out for you. And so when the game launches, there's going to be a number of videos that you'll be able to go and click on. You'll be able to play with the game designer, the game developer. You're going to be able to play with Scott. After the May 10th, you're going to actually be able to download the video with Becca Scott and play with her, and a number of other influencers and just gamers who we've brought to the AEG house who we're making videos for. And when you click on one of these videos, it's going to be like having that person in the room, a little bit like this webinar, but on tape. So if you're watching this video on tape, this is what the Tiny Towns event is going to be like. The caller will be using the deck of cards to call resources, and then you and the caller, or you and your group and the caller, will be placing those resources at the same time. And then after that game is done, the caller will then add up their points and tell you what they did, and then you're going to get an opportunity to add up your points. And so you're going to have 6 to 8 of those videos when we launch the game, and then we're going to add more of those videos as time goes on. And then players themselves actually are going to have the ability to make one of their caller videos and post them up to different sites. So it is a really unique opportunity. It's not just a solo game. It's almost it's a solo game that you can practice and experience with your friends. It's also the type of game. It's also the type of game that you don't have to be in the same room to play with your friends. So we play this game on Skype or on Zoom or on Slack more than any other game that we've ever played. And usually, as a virtual company, players have to, our staff sort of posts in here and they watch us play a game. But with Tiny Towns, we just all set up the exact same version of the board, and since it's not a lot of cards, it's only 7 cards plus your monument. It's easy to set up, and then we basically just play a game of Tiny Towns together. Sometimes we play with the videos that our friends have sent in, and we test our scores against that. And other times we just play a standard game of Tiny Towns. And so we know that there's a lot of busted up groups of gamers, people who game together, and then one of their friends, was in the Air Force and had to leave, or they met a girl or a boy and left town, and everybody's all bummed because Bob's gone. Well, this is a great opportunity to get Bob on Skype and to play a game together and connect. The other side of the coin is that it literally has an unlimited number of people who can play in the same game of Tiny Towns. We've gotten a 14-player game going here at the house, and the only limitation is having the components to play the game. So we've got 3 copies of the game spread out across the house, and we started calling numbers. And we're just gonna keep pushing the boundaries of how many people can play the game.
Yeah, I have to say that this is one of the more creative long-term marketing campaigns I've seen for a game, in the sense that John's right. I'm actually helping with myself and doing a video for my own channel as well. And it struck me as very interesting while I was doing it. I was thinking to myself, this is something that during the launch, a player could find it and immediately play along with it, right? So they can rush out on release weekend, grab a copy from the retailer, they can play along with it. But more importantly, they could find that video 3 months later, 9 months later, 2 years later, and it's still exactly as relevant at that time frame as it is during the launch video, to be able to play and utilize the rule system that you have, to where, yes, it is a kind of a disjointed game in the sense of I recorded it now, but someone's playing against that same rule set 2 years later, but it still completely works. And in some senses, it becomes almost like a group think version of playing a game, which is a really, really unique style, because those videos will never go out of utilization. They'll be relevant whether it's at launch or whether it's a year later or 2 years later. The other thing that I thought was very interesting was I talked with one retailer at Gamma, and he told me that he liked the idea of being able to take one of those videos, put them on his in-store signage. So he has like a TV with a laptop hooked up to it, and create an actual event around it and say, hey, come out for launch weekend, or come out for big game night and at our store. And they'll put a Rodney Smith video up, or whoever it is that may be doing that version of the game for Tiny Towns, and everyone in the store plays against them. So it even offers the retailers an opportunity to utilize those videos in store and be very unique and very creative with them as well. So it's definitely a very cool idea.
So I think it's a good opportunity for us to talk about some of the cool things there. So you mentioned Rodney Smith. So Rodney has not done a play along video yet, but he did an amazing learn to play video for this product. So as great as mine and Kyle's learn to play and explanation was here, his is like 10 or 20 times better than that. And he doesn't have his boss interrupting him halfway through it. So you're going to have the players are going to have access to the videos where they can play solo after they buy the game. We're offering a 2-week brick and mortar only release window for this product. Kyle, the release date for this is
April 26th.
The 26th, and then it doesn't release to the wider public until the 10th of May. Is that correct?
Correct.
10th of May. So during that time period, only brick and mortar, pick it up at your store, get it early pre-release. And then on the 10th, we've got a we've got a live feed promotion with Becca Scott Kearns, right? Is that correct? That's the correct date. It's at 2 or 3 p.m.
It is May 10th at 2 p.m.
May 10th,
2 p.m. Pacific.
2 p.m. PST.
Yep.
And then players are going to be able to play along with her in the way that we just talked about, the live feed. And then we'll make a video of that and we'll post it. But on that day, players that got the product in your store will be able to be playing in sort of a gigantic worldwide Tiny Times event, depending on when they want to get up. But they'll be able to play the game on that day and sort of have that shared launch experience. And they'll have 2 weeks to have, learned how to play the game and sort of prep themselves for that. And so even the people who are buying it online those days, that they're not going to have an opportunity. They'll be able to, they'll be buying it online that day and they won't get it for the next few days. So a lot of benefits. I think that the theme here is we're trying to push opportunities to brick and mortar to sell a majority of our print run.
I do want to add one additional marketing push that we did for this product. Well, not necessarily marketing. Brick and mortar retailers can actually get demos of this right now.
Yep.
So if you have not gotten a demo from us in one of the various ways, such as seeing our booth at Gamma or any of the other promotions that we've done, you can order an early demo copy of this game from your distributor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can order an early demo copy of the game. We have other special deals which each distributor will communicate with you. We're not sure which. We offered a plethora of opportunities for distributors, and we know that each of them has to run their different business differently. So they all sort of picked which ones they feel work best for them. I guess the final reminder here is that it's going to be April 26th, and this will be the first new game that AEG is releasing this year. We have we printed more copies than a company should print to make safe, good printing decisions. But we are also aware of all of the chatter online about games going out of stock too early and retailers not having an opportunity to sell those games. And even though we printed more copies than we thought we should, we've already put in a reorder for another print run, and we expect that we're going to run out of this one. But for you guys, I actually think we're going to run out in what we'll call a positive way, right? We're giving you a window to buy the product early before anybody else can get it. And so you're going to be able to decide how much risk you want to take on this release. But if you play it, I think that you'll take a big risk on it. The other thing that we've done, we've basically sold through the initial allocation of the product. In fact, Kyle oversold it just a little bit. He did a great job. Everybody has picked up nicely, but now we're taking the remaining stock and we're actually splitting that up so that a portion of that stock is in the same way sort of guaranteed to get out to brick and mortar retailers. So in the end, I would say that 3/4 of a very, very big print run, that brick and mortar retailers will have access to that product before anybody else has access to that product. It's a weird market, and what happens to it after it gets into the wild is a little bit beyond our control, and we're working hard to fix that stuff and to work hand in hand with brick and mortar retailers. But I think the important thing for us to say to you guys is that we really understand how important it is for a game to have support from the best brick and mortar retailers in the country. And we identify the best brick and mortar retailers in the country in a few different ways. And this is one of them, right? Is that a cutoff signal that you're giving me, Scott?
No, it's just not at all. No, you're good.
Don't say anything nice to the retailers.
No,
John.
if I do that, that's what you got to worry about. No.
This is one of the ways we identify the best retailers in the world. Basically, people who care enough to show up at a show and engage with us and find out about our products. People who are willing to get up early on a Monday morning and make sure that they have an advantage and that they have knowledge about the games that they're selling. Retailers who support companies like AEG and Renegade and are near peers by stocking their games a full-ish line and making sure that when a product sells out, they bring it back in so that there's the self-fulfilling prophecy of the cult of the new. The only way to break that is together, right? To do fewer games, to support the games that sell well, to make sure that stock is available, but then also to make sure that when you sell a copy of a game that you don't just go, whew, I sold that, thank goodness, I'm going to move on to the next thing. The thing that we all need is for the ability to to reorder that next copy and find another customer for it. Kyle, what I miss?
I think you're pretty much spot on. The only thing we were talking about print runs for this, and we printed a good amount of this product.
We printed 20,000 copies. Yeah. So we've been dancing around that. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't just tell retailers. We printed 20,000 copies. Yes.
And we were talking about stockouts, and we're trying to avoid stockout any way that we can. But there's also this time frame. So like right now we are looking at the success of this game and at how much we sold initially in, but we also know how long it takes us to print a game to get it from China to the US and then disseminate it out to retailers. So that's actually the biggest challenge. It's like, how much do we print right now to make sure that it's available for you moving forward? It's not that we want to run out of the game. It's not that we don't want you to have the product. It's just a simple matter of logistics and us holding on to the proper cash flows, because it's 3 months between us paying for this print run and with us getting paid for it afterwards. So there's this huge gap that we have to manage to make sure that everybody is stocked.
Yep, it's logistics and
always on time and on schedule with that format, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. There's never delays out of China.
Right.
So just a final few things for you guys that might be off topic just a little bit. We're going to sell out of Space Base, and we're going to sell out of the Space Base expansion. So we haven't made a big announcement about that yet. So if you showed up this morning, you know that we are about to sell out of Space Base and the Space Base expansion, and that maybe you should get an order in for that extremely hot game. We're here to serve you guys, right? We know that you are the tip of the spear, and we want to support you in any way that we can. So if we didn't cover it here today, or if you haven't got an answer from GTS for some reason, and you feel free to contact us at customerservice@alderac.com. We've got operators standing by, ready to answer your questions and to help you sell products. So
nice. There was a good question. Becky had asked 2 questions. One is very technical and one is very important. The technical one is, are the cards able to be sleeved? And I believe the answer is yes, because they're traditional tarot size cards. Is that correct?
They're traditional tarot size cards, and they can be sleeved, yes.
Yep. Okay. And then the most important one is, if a retailer wants one, how do they obtain one of those sweet, sweet Tiny Towns t-shirts?
That is a good question.
It is a good question.
Good question. I think you might have to try and take it off one of our backs at a convention.
Okay.
We got a number of copies of these.
That's understandable. That's understandable. But know that there is demand.
I have a few in my closet. If a retailer were looking to do a hosted playthrough video, maybe, they could contact us and say, we'd like to do a hosted video, and
there you go.
Maybe we might be able to get a shirt out to you, but no promises at this point. We printed a limited number of them, and I took 2. So we don't make very many
one to wear and one for laundry day, right?
Yeah. Well, we don't make very many long sleeve shirts in the gaming industry, and I'm like a little old man. My arms get cold.
Very good. Just to make sure we got it right, I put the email that you had just mentioned, John, into the chat so everyone has it. It's customerservice@alderac.com. Is that right?
Absolutely perfect. Feel free
Awesome.
to drop mine or Kyle's name.
Excellent, excellent. And just there was a question, Derek had a question about GTS technically adding links on our game description pages to the official game pages. So linking our product page to your product page. I will take that as a kind of a parking lot thing to take back to our IT and our marketing team to talk to them about that, about adding it on. But just in case anybody does want to reach you guys, where are you guys online in terms of what is your main web address? What is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything else you guys may be doing?
Okay. Well, Kyle, you have a better handle on the Twitter bombs and stuff that we've got going on. So.
Oh yes, I have all the information on the Twitter bombs. I believe it's just at Alderac, correct? I'm actually.
Yeah.
I do not remember that tag off the top of my head. I see it all the time.
We'll make sure we'll put it in the video. As you guys know, we record these and add them onto YouTube so people can come back and get more information about games when they want to. But we'll make sure to put all your guys' contact information on there. If anyone needs to reach out to me as well at GTS, it's real easy. It's just smorris@gtsdistribution.com. That looks like all the questions we got covered. Becky says that she has cold arms too, so I'm sure she'll hit you up for one of those, and maybe you could be the first retailer to actually take the shirt off of John Zinser's back at a show. So awesome.
Hit me up, Becky. Hit me up. jzinser@alderac.com.
There you go. Awesome. Okay. That is all the time we've got. We're actually just at the top of the hour, which is actually perfect timing, which is great. So, gentlemen, Kyle, John, thank you very much. This has been really informative. We've gotten some great feedback in the webinar chat here about the demos being very positive and helping everybody out, which is great. As a reminder for all the retailers who are here joining us, if you are here live, there's nothing you have to do to get your free demo copy of War Chest. Once the webinar is done, we get all of the information of those that attended over to the GTS sales reps. They'll contact you, get everything set up to be able to get your free demo of War Chest sent out to you. In addition, in general, AEG is part of GTS's demo program as well. So if you are looking for demo of other games like Space Base or Thunderstone or anything like that, feel free to reach out to GTS sales rep and talk to them about how you can obtain copies of demos for those for your store. And as a reminder, if you purchase or pre-order War Chest or Tiny Towns between today, Monday, April 15th, and next Monday, April 22nd, you'll be able to get 52% off MSRP as well. So great opportunity to bring in some awesome games, get some more traction, and help build up with a brand that is one of the strongest ones in the industry right now. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. I know Mondays are always crazy for retailers, especially the Monday right after Game of Thrones, as I'm sure everyone was up late last night. So hope that if you did watch it, you enjoyed it. And if you didn't watch it, you can avoid the spoilers. So thank you all for joining. Appreciate your time, and everyone have a wonderful week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.